as a coach, you're behind the scenes. You're helping all these people put together this machine and making the conditions right for the rider. And they then go on to win the race, which could be a product you release or a feature you release. A coach is still an individual contributor, so none of my coaching roles have had any management titles to it. So I'm sitting in like a, the whole like techno-optimist, techno-pessimist. I'm coining something called an in-between band of like techno-measured.
Welcome to the Product House, where friends nerd out about the product. So today, we actually have another special guest.
We're sitting down with different kind of product managers from startups, scale-ups and enterprises, 120% full-time founders to fractional leaders and even professional product coaches to unpack what the role really looks like on the ground. So before we get into it, just a disclaimer, names and organizations mentioned in this episode may have been anonymized to protect privacy.
As I mentioned, today, the guest is actually a longtime friend of mine, Paru. And then we actually met through a common connections, which I hope will be on this podcast one day. Yes. And then, but we're also really bonded by a lot of really passionate conversations around product management, agile coaching, and the food. We are going to do a product house kind of transitions, which is called rapid fire. So we're just going to ask like 5 AI generate like questions and then try to answer them as soon as you can.
Okay.
So without further ado, the first one is, if your career were a TV show, what genre would it be? Would it be a sitcom, drama, reality TV, or sci-fi?
Oh, sitcom, I would say, just purely because I think it's got like a nostalgic connotation to it as well.
Nice. I'd love for it to be a sci-fi, but it's not that exciting. It's a thriller because I don't know what will happen next.
Okay. I think if a TV show, it probably will be a travel show. Second question. You get a billboard in the middle of your city for one day. What is the one sentence you will put on it?
I'll just repeat my question. I'll be like, why though?
Be such a cool one in the
People
city.
would really get thinking.
I mean, I don't want to like cause traffic incidents or anything, but just getting the message out there.
I think it would just be for me a simple reminder to be kind.
That's actually a good one. Yeah. What I will put on the billboard. Well, I generate this question. I should think about it beforehand. I should have nothing on it. Actually, you know what? I probably just have something AI generate, something random on it, because I feel that probably the reminder is about be playful. Yeah. Okay, next one is very unusual. Have you ever named a device like a robot or a laptop? Have you ever give them a name?
And I have a little like Bose sound box or like a Bose sound system, and then my headphones. So the theming is like Huda Bose and Peruski's de Bose. Don't ask me why, but I was God. I need to just like find something generic other than like Bose QC blah blah blah.
I like it.
What about you guys?
My
name. Oh my God.
Robot vacuum is named Hughesy, which is the street that I live in. So I live on Hughes, so call the robot Hughesy. But yes, it's very kind of personable in that sense.
Well, no question asked, but I used to call my robot Ashley. So
because you like yelling at
Ashley. Yeah. So what's your go-to snack during a long workshop or brainstorming sessions? You guys run a lot of workshops, actually.
I'm partial to the little packs of Cobs. They have this like air-popped popcorn, and I like it because it's like individual packs. My like facilitator brain is like thinking about the practicalities and
you can pretend it's healthy as well,
etc. Plus it's healthy. Plus it's sort of healthy. We'll pretend, and it's a little better than lollies, I guess. So yeah, that would be my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
I promise we're not sponsored whatsoever, but Red Rock Deli sea salts, all natural. It's just crack cocaine for me.
So you bring that to the workshop?
It's usually something sweet and handy, but that's just what I had today. So
but those are dangerous, though. I do love those. It's one of those things once you open a pack, it's like,
For me, I like the idea about healthy snack, but I never do it healthy, unfortunately. I normally just go with a snake, the candy snake.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
All right, last one is if we can invent a new emoji that the world desperately need, basically brand new emojis, please describe them in 5 words or less.
My favorite emoji is the palm face, but if a new one would be
You need to create a new one.
herding cats, yes.
Okay.
But that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would kind of play on the whole, the thinking face. Again, I'm very sticking to my earlier brand here. But it's also a bit have you really thought about it?
Wide throw. The seeming is coming through. I like it. Okay.
Have you both seen the meme where it's why though? That very popular meme. I'll share it later, but it's literally Y, the letter Y and THO.
Yeah,
so
that'd be awesome.
that could be another option.
That would be awesome, yeah. Well, I think my one is also on brand as well. I was thinking about is either ChatGPT or doing myself. Kind of literally just a confusing face around should I go for AI or should I thinking myself? Like that emoji.
So Paru, you've delivered products that customers love at a Red Balloon. You've guided teams through big transitions like the acquisition of Hotels Combine at Kiet. And you've worked across industries from travel, edtech, fintech, even starting your own vineyard. That's kind of what I gathered in your CV, but could you tell the audience who Paru is in your own words?
Okay. So I purposefully kind of started the wine nerd travel aspect because overall I'm just trying to, I think as part of introspection, this exercise, really looking at who am I beyond just the work I do. So love wine, love travel. As far as work goes, I think the essence of what I really enjoy is just looking at the big picture, trying to figure out the system as a whole, and then working with the human beings in the system to just help overall just make things better. So it could manifest as a team working together better. It might be a workshop that runs to its outcomes. It might just be a couple of people actually being able to talk about some tougher, stickier situations. But I think overall the goal is allowing people to just do good work. But I think I always try and remember that, yes, it's this system and chaos and mess, but it is humans and soon, or if not now, AI in the mix as well. So
It's very true.
That's really, and I think it's just kind of manifest as different titles or different roles, but ultimately I've been trying to sort of pare it all back and go, what do I really enjoy? And I think that is at the core of what what I get into.
How does the wine things that come into the mix then? What makes you suddenly decide to come into the open wine? Yeah.
Wine in general, and this is not endorsing alcohol by any means, but wine does help. Just in general. But I mean, if you're asking how I sort of got into that industry, that was more of a life adventure or a side quest where my husband and I were just looking for some property to invest in. Sydney, it's just unaffordable. So we ended up with this place in the Hunter Valley, and it just so happened to have grapevines on it, about 20 acres or so. And so we went, we like wine, what? Can't be that hard to make it. Famous last words. It was very hard.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of your overall career journey in the early days, it was very much product management focused, right? How do you describe kind of product management in your words? Because, we talk to different people, they have different kind of definitions of it. Tell us a bit about that and your journey into product.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was working in product roles before they were even product management titles. So that's an interesting observation and I think some of your guests have also referred to it, where you don't actually need the title. You can still be a product person. So in terms of the journey, it was early days was BA in the more sort of traditional waterfall project type life. But my first foray into more product thinking and being responsible, I think, for product outcomes was I worked with a sustainability reporting company called Envisi. And so that was where I was given, I think the title was like product analyst. But essentially, it was owning a reporting tool and creating, templates that customers could use or helping customers customize their reports, that kind of thing. So that was the first foray into product. But then beyond that, working in Red Balloon in sort of experiential gifting and e-commerce, and also fintech, but not so much, I guess, in the hands-on product manager role, but influencing some of those decisions and ways of working. And then ultimately also at Elmo, where I was tasked with coaching a group of product people as well. So I think from all of the experiences, it really just depends on one, like the size of the company, the culture of the company, and even the team or the product that you're leading. It can be very different in my experience, what a product manager does. But I think it ties nicely into your like cat herder emoji. I think that's like universal skill, is that you need that ability, which is influencing without any actual authority, really, if you think about it. Building those relationships, communicating very clearly. So whether it's bad news or good news or whatever it might be, like, I think it goes back to, again, like putting yourself in the shoes of the partner on the other side of the business that you're saying no to or not right now. Or whether it's your team going, well, let's pivot here or now, whatever that looks like. But ultimately, it's that communication and curiosity that always, but why? Like, why are we doing this? Why not this? Or why this thing now?
I'm really fascinated about Red Balloon specifically because they were one of the very early kind of organizations who really got all into the product management side of things and really looking at their product as how do we kind of deliver value to customers rather than kind of a little bit more of the traditional ways of thinking and working. What was the culture like there?
Naive old me would have said it was hands down the best job ever. Present me says it was the best job for the first couple of years. In that the culture was very much, it was so customer obsessed. Like everything we did, every conversation that was had was just customer happiness. Like, and I know some, you hear some taglines and it's like, we're all about customer happiness and satisfaction and things like that. But it was genuinely, at least at the time that I was there, the customer was really center of like all conversations, which I think really ultimately, like if you're thinking about gifting, happiness or gifting an experience, like you really can't go wrong with that mentality. And I think just that customer, but then as an organization, again, the employees, again, as that center of building, happy employees equals happy experiences, therefore happy customers. There was a very sort of nice thread that kind of came through the organization in that sense. So like I remember when we started, one of the things you had to do in induction was you had to sit with the customer experience team for at least, I think over the course of your first month, it was recommended to do at least like 3 days or 5 days. I can't quite remember which was, but it was essentially embedding listening to customer calls, like going into customer experience meetings. If you're brave enough answering a couple of customer calls, those kind of things. Again, that like real sort of obsession about the customer.
That experience, because that literally sounds like a Disneyland for the product management, because there's so many kind of like a product company, they have a banner somewhere in the company value talking about customer like obsessed, but really don't have a lot of the practice. So I am actually interested, have you actually bring some of these, the philosophy or best practice there about the customers into some of your later role?
Yeah, I mean, I think having seen that, and the value that came from that sort of thinking and that kind of conversations, I think I've always tried to then ask those questions of like, have we spoken to the customer? Or some organizations are a bit more resistant where, for instance, you might have salespeople who are kind of the face of the business and they speak to the customer, for instance. There's still ways of kind of going, well, can you give me some data points? Or, if you don't feel comfortable with me coming to a customer meeting, like, can you share some meeting notes? I think those are some of the ways I've still tried to get closer to the customer. And I think even in terms of like my current role as a coach, the people I coach, I can see as my customers, but then ultimately any conversations we have is like, this is the audience is our customer, right? If as the national broadcaster at the moment where I work, ultimately, are we thinking about the people who are receiving this function or the value or the product, whatever you need to think about, the service? It's looked different in different organizations, but I'm always like, there's no excuse for not getting some form of customer information or research or, any kind of information that will.
Nice.
I'm like interested, since you're talking about the product management and the product coaching kind of a career transitions. I'm also quite interested about how did that transition happening, and also what's the hardest things about the transition? Because I feel like as a hands-on product management, building product suddenly to a day to get a bit hands-up and become a person to, I guess, creating environment for others to do, like, must be a transition period as well. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the thing right there. I still sometimes struggle in a coaching role to not do the thing because you're like, if I had an opportunity, here's like the tool I would use and this is the format I would set it up. Versus kind of always just remembering it's almost like a force multiplier, right? The coach, where you're kind of going, well, instead of me doing this thing for somebody or me doing this thing for a team, if I enable the people in the team to do it, then it just almost becomes easy to spread the goodness in a sense. So I was thinking about this. That kind of turning point for me was post Red Balloon, or towards kind of the end of Red Balloon days. We had scaled a fair bit. So one of my senior engineers and we were playing around with some processes and system tweaks. And I think that really kind of piqued my interest as well to go, yes, there's this path where you can go down, develop product, but there's this other path where you could go down and just make the place and the system and the ways of working better, which is still, yes, a step removed from delivering the product, but probably is a bit more complex as well. And I think I really enjoy the complexity of that domain. Not to take away anything from product managers and having to work in complex systems, but I think that's where I kind of had a fork in the road, where I went from a more product manager role to, I think my title at the time was Scrum Master or product owner / there was like a few like slash titles, but that was kind of the crossing that I got to.
Yeah, but how did those parts being presented to you? Is that more like you seeing more internal kind of drive to feel like this is a time for me to do something different, or is actually happen to be in the organization because with things getting more complicated, and then someone mentioned there is another path, like a co-coaching to you?
It was just, we were given the autonomy to make things better. Again, at that point in time, at that organization, the culture was still, if you wanted to make a change, like, go do it. And then let's actually look at the results. Let's treat it as an experiment and all of those, philosophy. So we just kind of went, I think it was how we were addressing BAU requests. It was a mess. It was chaotic. It was always the loudest voice was winning the argument. So we went, wait, we've heard of this thing called Kanban. Maybe there's something in it. We'll just like surface all of the work. We'll put it back in the day, on a physical wall. And then we'll get our stakeholders in and we'll get them in the dialogue to help prioritize. Like, that was the simplest experiment we did. And it was amazing, the things that, people were like, oh, well, I didn't know that so-and-so had this thing. And, oh, maybe as an overall unit, it's better if I park my thing for now and, we focus on this thing. So I think it was a little bit of a thing of my own making. And then it was at that point in time, I think there were roles like Scrum Master and coaches and delivery leads were more and more prevalent in the industry.
Oh, just reminded me of a recent post by John Cutler, who, and I'm paraphrasing here, he was just saying how surprised he was how little large organizations reflect on how they work rather than the work itself. And, you know, obviously both Charlotte and I come from a coaching background. Just hearing your journey through transitioning from individual contributor to reflecting on the system and trying to improve the system, because, you know, your impact gets multiplied.
Yeah.
Right. That's quite a beautiful thing.
I also feel like it's a healthy tensions about these two roles, because I don't know if this is like if Kiet and Paru have a similar experience as I do. So when I'm going through this transition for individual contributor to the coaches, and later on from coaches coming back, I feel this internal, it's all by my internal drive. So when I was kind of in the individual contributor role, I was I really wanted to be able to influence the system, because I feel so powerless when I'm in this individual contributor role. I feel like there's a lot of issue I see is system issues. I wish I have this magic wand to be able to work on the system level. But when I'm on the system level, doing this coaching thing, I have exact same feeling what Paru was mentioned about. I was like, please just give me the tools. Let me just do it. It will be finishing in like literally this period of time. So then I was like, well, let me just go back. But that's why I feel like this is such a hard kind of a balance. So I wonder if you find any more peace around that. Is there a perfect role exists, I guess, in this world around you will be able to do both. You can have a little bit doing and you have a little bit coaching.
There's, not to sound pessimistic, but I don't know if there's a perfect role right now. But I mean, who knows, right? With AI maybe taking some of the manual tasks out of people's plates and things like that, maybe there's something to come. But what I found was when I had my side gig, that was kind of a good balance, because I was able to then kind of be the creator or be the person doing, because it was essentially just my husband and I, we had to look after the vineyard and like learn about things, and we were also managing like a property on the vineyard as a secondary source of income and things like that. So it was a good outlet for, you know, like, what's the next problem, like social media, do I even like tackle this now, how important is going on this booking platform as opposed to the other one. So I think that was a nice outlet to like almost channel the doing aspect of it, versus the other part of, you know, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, which was again pre-COVID, was the more coaching and teaching and mentoring side of it. So if there's a conclusion I want to draw from that, it would be like, there's nothing stopping us from doing a side project or creating a community like what you both have done with Product Pals, right? Like, there's still an element of creation and control, not control maybe as much, but you're more hands-on
autonomy,
in the making of the thing, rather than being a step removed. And that's kind of my answer at the moment. But maybe there'll be a perfect role. I don't know. I just haven't found it.
No, that sounds about right. No, I love this takeaway as well, because to be very honest, like this is actually how Product House been born, and a lot of probably other popular famous product being born is because you don't have to find the perfect role in your, like I guess, your current organization. Of course, there's a saying called role crafting. The idea around that is
job crafting.
In your current role, ideally, you can do your best to craft in a way that meeting your goal, align with your goal, so you can do the best job around it. But sometimes there is a lot of constraints around that. So I really like the takeaway you say that is if there's certain you can't make it perfect, there's certain element if you can't really get it from your current role, maybe there's other channels that you can get it. So I really like that learning. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I think that's the, like, realizing what's in your control and what isn't, I think also is just good for mental health overall.
Sphere of influence and constraints. That's the whole kind of model.
Like, the number of times I've done the sphere of influence exercise, like with myself, but also with teams who are, you know, maybe coming up against organizational constraints, for instance. You kind of go, all right, like, let's just put it down on a digital whiteboard or paper. Like, what is actually realistic here versus what are we, you know, stressing about, or maybe even potentially wasting time trying to change right now.
Yeah. A lot of people are probably in this audience individual contributor, they probably haven't played the coach's role. They probably will feel a bit confused about the difference between a coaching's role and the manager's role. And also you mentioned about mentor and advisors type of role. So what's the difference between them?
So I have an analogy. I was thinking about this. So there's only one sport I actively follow, and it's motorcycle racing. It's called MotoGP, and it's kind of like the motorcycle equivalent of Formula One, right? So I was thinking about this in terms of a team there. So the goal, there's like a set number of races. There's ultimately a world championship every year. There's about 23 riders that compete, and they all represent different brands or factories. And so the goal of the rider is obviously win each race. You want to be the first or second or third, or get some points at least. And then the ultimate goal is you want to win the world championship. And then you have the riders doing the thing. But then behind the scenes, you have this interesting role called the crew chief. Actually, that's the title. And it's this person who is kind of behind the scenes, who is talking to the rider, who's talking to the engineers, who's talking to the data people, who's talking to the management, and almost interpreting, trying to simplify problems, trying to go, okay, well, what do we try next? What have we tried before that's worked? And I was likening that to, I think that for me is my experience of being in a coach role, is that I'm not the rider, which could be, let's say in this instance, it's the PM or the team itself who's a rider. Like, I didn't create the bike. I don't have that expertise, but I am this person in the background who potentially is kind of asking questions, revealing some parts of the system, or going, well, we did this thing 2 years ago, like, is it worth trialing it again? So that's a coach is still an individual contributor. So none of my coaching roles have had any management titles to it. So that's something I want to clarify, is you can be an individual contributor as a coach, which is also my current role at the moment, is I am an individual contributor. If you're a manager, in the MotoGP analogy, it's kind of like I'm the team boss. So say there's a brand called Ducati. So I'm like the CEO of Ducati, right? So that's like management level.
That's a cool name.
Type people who they've got their eye on the future, like what's the future of the company, what's the future of the product, all of those kind of things. But even if you're a manager, and this is something I learned through one of my really good managers I had, 80% or maybe even like 90% of management is actually coaching. So if you've had the joy of working for a good manager, they should more times than not be wearing the hat of a coach. Yes, there is the whole, system side of it where you do the performance reviews and administration and you're part of a leadership team and all those kind of things, which is management. But there's still this, it's not a clear-cut separation, if you will. So if you were looking for a black and white answer, I don't think I can give you that. As a coach, you're behind the scenes. You're helping all these people put together this machine and making the conditions right for the rider. And they then go on to win the race, which could be a product you release or a feature you release. Ultimately, the business just cares if you won the world championship, right?
That's true.
Like,
It's
that's
outcomes.
the goal. If your business, the outcomes, they don't really care if you put a different kind of tire on the bike on this race versus another part on the bike. Like, no one cares except for the outcome, which is, I won the race, I won the world championship. Now I want to win the next world championship.
Just double clicking on the coaching part. Are you familiar with the Lisa Adkins kind of coaching model?
Yes.
The 4 stances, right? Facilitating, teaching, mentoring, and professional mentoring. How do you, when a product manager or a team that you're working with comes up to you and says, "Oh, we've got this particular problem," what's your mental model in pivoting from one stance to another when you're choosing which stance to take?
I do a bit more of discovery, in the sense of sometimes when a person comes to you or a team comes to you and says, like, we need to solve this, you tend to do a little bit more of digging into, like, what is the actual problem. So that's a bit more, I guess, of a coaching stance. You might know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you the answer. It's better if you find the answer kind of an approach. What would be different if we did this? Or, what would happen if we changed this thing? And then sometimes you just need to show people how to do it, right? So that for me is the more teaching or mentoring, or in a bit more directive manner, where you go, I don't know, if it's a brand new person in product management that maybe potentially has not ever put together a product strategy, you might go, rather than just say, oh, like, go find stuff, like, here's people that you might find useful. I've had in instances where I go, here's a template that I think will work. So let's talk through this template. We'll explore this. Let's see how you might be able to use it in your situation, right? It might be, I love Organa's product strategy template. Like, it's a great starting place, for instance. So that for me is, again, like, it's a bit more hands-on, where it's not just me sort of going, well, what have you thought about? Like, what have you found? Versus, and it's also sometimes time, right? It's critical. Maybe this person's just like, oh shit, I have like a workshop in 2 weeks' time. Like, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So then you put on the other hat, and sometimes it's just a facilitator. Sometimes all they need is to be able to participate, and having a neutral facilitator often helps with that. So it really kind of depends. I always base it on, yes, okay, you're seeing this thing or you have these problems. Let's actually just unpack it a little bit and then almost go, which is the most important or which is the most time sensitive.
I'm going to add in one more complexity for both of you here, actually. Probably more target towards Kiet in this situation, but I'm really interested in Peru's answer as well.
Ooh.
But what about, like, we're talking about, like, coaching managers, mentors, I think facilitators. What about consultant? Because this is one of the feedback that I got at the beginning is sometimes the line between being a coach and being a consulting, there's so much overlap. The line is really blurry around. So how would you distinguish between these two roles? And also, do you find when you're as a coach, you kind of have to do some consulting, and when you're being a consulting, you're doing a little bit coaching?
I might jump in with a start, because specifically in consulting, obviously it depends on the engagement, but there are very black and white things that you have to deliver. And I do love kind of Peru's approach, which is kind of assess what is the problem you're trying to solve for first, right? And what are the limitations? Like, is it a time-bound thing? Like, 2 weeks, great. I'll work with you to co-design this, right? But if you need to do this workshop tomorrow, and I don't have the faith that whoever I'm working with, whether it's a junior or the client or whatever it is, that they can do it themselves, then it's just kind of balancing how much help they need and kind of going with something a bit more hands-on versus actually, if I've got a couple of weeks to kind of design and plan this, I might not even give them a template. I'll just say, ask them the hard questions, right? So I think that's the boundary. And typically in the consulting land, because you're doing things a lot more time-bound, you pretty much have to take your client's authority and take on the responsibility to do the work.
Okay. I think I hear something there around, is this about like a constraint? And the other one, I think, is also a little bit about safety as well. It's a situation like what you say, if the consequence of this workshop, like to be failure, is actually really low for both the individual who running it, the people from the employee, and then and also for yourself, like for the people who kind of helping with this organization. If this workshop is, if we fail, people, no one cares, there's no impact around that, then I think coaching is 100% a good stand. I really like that, because when I thinking about the whole 4 stem, I feel like coaching almost is a default stem in most situations. If we feel like it's safety, we don't need to set up a safety net, because it's the best way for people to learn is to see people doing themselves, and then we'll be able to learn and reflect through it. And then, however, if there's no that level of safety, and then safety can be impacted by the time, by the actual kind of roles that you are playing, the systems and the importance, like impact around it. And if there's no safety, then I feel like in a lot of ways, coaches have to to set up almost like a safety nest underneath it. And then that means that when the people fall, they fall on this safety nest. And this could mean that you might need to play a little bit this teaching role, either tell them do not go there, play a little bit consulting role, helping them to finish their work basically together, or playing a few different things like as well. So I feel like safety sounds like it's also another element for when you
I mean
the
time constraint is definitely, yes, it's very time bound, and in my short-lived experience as consultant. But I mean, there's nothing to stop us from almost putting on a consultant hat sometimes to go, yes, we might be in a safe team or safe organization, but I always kind of go like, what do I want people to tell other people about their experience in a workshop, for instance, right? Like, I want to be known for delivering successful outcomes in a workshop as a simple example. And I potentially have the luxury of it, not quite going to plan or running over time or whatever it might be. But I think if we almost kind of take a stance of my work, like what is the reputation I want to be known for? What is the measure of success and all of those things? There's differences between consulting and coaching and the other stances, but ultimately for, I think, the more complex roles or harder to explain roles, especially when it comes to value, I often get people kind of going like, but what do you do again? It really just kind of becomes more important. You almost kind of have to keep a list of, here's the successful things I've done, or here's the changes we've seen. Like, I think it would almost benefit more people or more of us more often if we put on that consultant hat once in a while.
Yeah. It's not unlike product
That
managers in hard to explain roles, right? And I do love the...
Yes,
I do love the call out that workshop design as an example. They're the explicit outcomes of the workshop, but also the implicit ones are around what do you want to get out of it as an individual facilitating it as well.
Yeah.
I have another follow-up question around that is for people now as a product manager, if they wanted to transit their career into coaching, what would be one career advice, I guess, you're giving to them? What will be some of the most important thing they should pick up, mindset they should pick up? What will be the advice?
Say, keep that curiosity element. I think inherently as a product person, you're curious, you want to build some great stuff, but you also want to be doing it in hopefully a kind way, to your like billboard reference earlier, Kiet. So I think all of those principles still very much apply to a coaching role where you're presented with some symptoms and that sort of thinking, asking, obviously finding that balance of like action versus, too much kind of analysis is also, I think, a common thing from product management to coaching, etc. But for me, it's, again, I come back to like, this is a human being in the middle of the thing. The issues or whatever challenges have stemmed from include other human beings. How do we be curious? Sometimes not easy, but still, like, that curiosity and not jumping to conclusions. I said to one of my like mentees the other day, just do a 5 whys exercise. If you have a team that comes to you, just don't even say it out loud, but just kind of go, but why? And why? But why is that? So that curiosity element, I think, will serve well. But I think, again, coming back to that communication and thinking about, who's your audience when you're talking to people, all of those principles that are very much sort of your product role, I think they carry across and translate really well to the coaching role.
Okay, I have another, this is 100% off-script conversation question. So I'm also really curious, how do you prevent, this is one of the personal challenging I'm having, because I'm a very curious person. I like to ask myself why an analysis of everything, but sometimes I do get the feedback about, I get overanalyzed. So what's your guys' kind of pro tips to people like me to be why stay curious, thinking about the why, but also make sure it doesn't present in a way analysis paralysis?
I mean, I have a take on this is, if you have a trusted kind of colleague or friend, almost just kind of set yourself a little deadline to go, okay, by the end of this week, I'm going to book in some time with so-and-so, and I'm just going to have a bit of a, jam about this thing, right? So that could be a nice kind of mirror to reflect, like, am I overdoing it? Or maybe they're also an overthinker, so it could go both ways, but either way you get some kind of feedback. I've tried to use like Claude and ChatGPT recently to kind of go give it the context and go, here's the thing I'm trying to arrive at, here's what I have right now, like critique it, which can also kind of go both ways in a rabbit hole spiral of like, no, you need to find more things. But maybe it's the thing of, I personally find if I set myself a little bit of pressure, a little bit of a deadline to go, by this time at least, I must have, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's that just in time, what's good enough that I can, share it with somebody or put it through another kind of exercise, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's how I've kind of tried to regulate my overthinking.
I love it. Time box it, and then use of AI, and then also both of you get prepared for me to booking calendars.
I think definitely echo what Paru said, right? And I think it's a dangerous echo chamber because I also overthink, right?
It is, yes.
And
yeah.
I think there's two parts of that. One is I don't think it's possible to overthink because analysis is good, all right? And I think the challenge is when you're communicating to people who are trying to make a decision with low context. It's the narrative that you need to get right? And exactly what Paru said, this is where like tools like ChatGPT help quite a lot in framing up the storytelling, right? But it's really, what's the bare minimum, what's the story I need to tell that gives enough context for them to make a decision, right? Or to cynically speaking, to arrive at the decision that I've arrived at. Right.
That's one thing ChatGPT are also very good at it. They basically just try to encourage you to tell you how good your idea it is. And then sometimes it's something I'm also worries me because I feel I have a really great relationship with my ChatGPT coach. But when I actually present it, it may not be the kind of right level of details for the
but I think
others.
That's like, Kiet, you make an excellent point. It's the communication of like how much context and who needs to know how much, and does my manager, for instance, might want to know that I went through like all of these 5 steps to get to this point, but business partner that's like somewhere else across the org just wants to hear the result or just kind of help me make a decision.
And you need to be prepared to answer that in the level of detail that they need to, right? That's
exactly, the level of detail, I think, right?
I think we're already kind of starting to touch on it, but obviously AI is a very big topic, and it's kind of reshaping how a lot of people do their job. Like as both a product coach and just in general a professional knowledge worker, how has AI changed the way you work?
I'm sitting in like the whole like techno-optimist, techno-pessimist. I'm coining something called an in-between band of like techno-measured. So I'm seeing parts of it where like we had this conversation of, ChatGPT able to critique a draft or something like that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this is, and I do use it we use Copilot at work. So, you give it the context and you use it for draft me something or review this message, etc. Creatively, this is not again a plug for any company, but I did use a tool called Descript. I don't know if either of you have used it.
Yes, it's actually a podcast. Like,
it is
community tools. Exactly.
Not to take away anything from the tool you're currently using, but it was really just like great fun because I was emceeing like an all hands, and I had a really like vague, weird theme, and I was like, I have this idea in my mind, but I've never edited anything. I've never, created like anything sort of animation or anything. And I was able to just go in and do videos, for instance. And I was like, this is magical, right? That's the optimist side of the spectrum. But then you hear about all these horror stories of ethics and, the biases in AI. And I think the thing I'm most concerned about is us losing critical thinking as a skill, which the pessimist in me is like, it's already happening. And I feel like AI is just going to accelerate that if we don't really keep an eye on it. So again, like with Copilot, I was playing around. I fed it like a couple of slide decks and I said, create me like a product requirements document, right? And it spat out this beautiful draft, very professional. But then I read it and I was like, well, it seems like we're trying to address like 5 problems with one initiative. Like, so it's that kind of thing of like, don't just take it for granted. Just like keep questioning it, keep correcting it. And I don't know, that's where my sort of techno measure part comes, is critical thinking, also like the resource use and abuse that's happening at the moment. So really great book I've just started reading. It's called The Empire of AI. I don't know if either of you have read it. It's by an author called Karen Gao. I'll share the link. But she basically embedded with OpenAI. This was pre-COVID. And she has quite a few interesting observations on how some of these Silicon Valley companies are almost proceeding as if like the empires of the olden day, where it's not equitable. Yes. It's going to be resources in the hand of a few that are going to make people richer, make the rest of us poor. And it paints a bit more of a darker picture. So I think I'm still in this ping pong phase of, I see the awesomeness in my day-to-day where it can make manual tasks better. Granola, another tool I've loved using for notes and task management. It's really, really great when it comes to taking, meeting notes and doing things beyond that. But then you kind of look at the other side and you're like, oh, I don't quite know. So I'm in this kind of in between phase of AI in general.
Yeah. This is probably the most healthy places as well. You're curious, you're open-minded by trying them out to know what it is. But
yeah,
also,
I think that's the thing, right? Like as with food or wine or travel, you can read a lot of reviews, but unless you've gone somewhere and had the meal or you've been to a city and experienced it, you have to form your own opinions and your stance on the world. And it just is so much other at the moment. You're just kind of like, I feel differently about the tools every day.
It's a very human thing as well, right? Exactly what you mentioned, which is it's the context and the experience of doing it and being there and feeling and smelling it, which, at least for the short future, AI can't replace, right? You can't go in and get a sense of what it feels like to be in the middle of Tokyo in cherry blossom season, for example.
But AI made me craving more for that kind of experience, to be very honest. Like there's so many times when I was literally using AI to brainstorming some idea, I was like, this could be a phone call with Kiet to asking him about what does he think about this. And when I was literally planning a trip and basically for a family holiday, this could be a hour's phone call with my mom, just talking about all different opinions. So sometimes that is the part that, like exactly as what like I think both of you guys share, especially what Paru share, is like we enjoy the awesomeness of it, but sometimes there's always something in the back of our head to questioning what does this convenience taking away from it. And for me, that is that I'm in a lot of way when I'm using it, I'm just craving for the other side.
I was trying to think of somebody was like, I built this agent and I had a little bit of FOMO and I was like, oh, maybe I need to get into it and go build an agent. And I was like, I just couldn't find myself motivated enough. But then I was speaking to another friend and he went, you need to find a use case that makes sense first.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh my God.
And then you 100%. Go do the things. So this kind of comes back to the fundamentals of product management. It's like you find the problem, you solve for it. And I think that's my also approach in terms of if I find the use case, I go, okay, now I know what I can use or where I can find AI to support. That's my stance at the moment.
100%. I feel like you are speaking kind of this made me so happy. It's simply because I'm currently in the industry that around helping my clients building kind of AI agents, and you have no idea how much anxiety that causing, I guess, the whole industry at the moment. Literally, there's almost like if you have a client coming to you, everyone's wanted to build an AI agent, and in any of the meeting, before people even have a chance to articulate what is the true like kind of problem it is, there's someone jumping to the conversation to say we should just build an AI agent.
We should just build AI agent.
Magic pill. I guess maybe one thing I wanted to ask before kind of Kiet ask some of the wrapping up question is, because there's so many kind of noise in the industry about AI tools, methodology, agents, and calm as well. So what's your kind of go-to approach to keep sharp?
I think the remaining calm is a little bit of acknowledging that I don't have control over whether my role, like I have some control in that I can upskill my side of things. But if an organization makes a decision that, coaching roles are redundant and we're just going to bring in AI to do it, that's outside of my control. So I think I've had to kind of do a little bit of that sphere of influence exercise around that bit. But then in terms of following, so I subscribe to a really excellent newsletter called The Neuron, which is once a day, you kind of get this really nice summary of things that have happened across the world, some tools to trial. And even within that, I kind of go back to that, like, what is my use case? What am I, like, what's taking more time for me? Or what do I need to get AI's help with to make life better? And so I'm trying to almost build this focus on what should I try next? Because otherwise, like, I'm sure you both find it as well. There's so much information out there that you kind of go into that, doom scroll of like, oh shit, like everybody's an AI product manager or AI is taking all the jobs, right? So it's, I kind of find like limiting the whole concept of limiting work in progress. You kind of focus, you go, okay, this is the tool I want to spend time on. And I've started blocking out time in my calendar every week for exploration. So if work is quite busy, I'll try and do something on a weekend where I listen to a podcast, or I like the Descript option I displayed around it with it on a weekend. So it's, I guess, consciously setting some time aside, as we have done, I think, for ages around if you've had a learning plan, whatever it is. And then really kind of just, there's trusted voices, like who I follow might not be the same as who you follow, but, Akash Gupta is putting out lots of good stuff out there about AI and the PM role. All of your basics of, I think there's some John Cutler fans here in the house. I'm a huge fangirl. I always follow like his stuff on all the things with PM and etc. So I think it's maybe also then hearing the contrarian views of, the good of AI versus the other side of it, I think is the other thing I'm trying to do.
Huge John Cutler fan, but I just don't know how he has time to do his day job, considering how much he actually publishes. He does like at least a post every day, if not every hour. So
it's just, I don't know if he's got like a John Cutler bot. That's just, I know I've met John now a couple of times, so I'm always like, how do you do it?
Oh my God. Well, that could be our podcast goal. We should interview him,
that'd
share
awesome.
About his kind of a secret.
And so Paru, specifically for you, like of the big list of things that we could possibly do and learn and kind of upskill, what's the next thing?
So there is some work we're doing at the ABC at the moment, where I think there's scope to introduce an AI agent. So that would be kind of my next, like I have the use case, now I just need to understand how to go about it, really. So that would be one thing to kind of tick off in terms of, that whole sort of, until you do it, you kind of like keep reading about it. It's that analysis paralysis phase until you actually just go ahead and do it. So that's sort of immediately on my next thing. And then, I mean, we haven't mentioned the Venn diagram so far. So at some point, my intersection would be wine, product, people. If I can do more stuff in that sort of intersection of, I don't know what that looks like. It could be another venture into wine, teaching about wine or helping people learn more about it. I'm sure there's like a set of niche things out there that,
Yeah. If I hazard a guess for a problem statement of your Venn diagram, it'd be how might we encourage alcoholism?
No. I mean, let's call it responsible
sure.
consumption of.
I'm sure
100%.
there's better problem spaces than
100%.
the one I came up with. So.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you both have the brains. We can jam again at some time, but I think just to conclude, Shah, like your point about with AI doing more things and us living more online lives, I think the importance of having things like food and wine or whatever drink of your choice and just connecting as people and in person, I think there's really like a growing need for those spaces and businesses. So whatever that looks like,
I would love to brainstorming that with you, because to be honest, one of the biggest questions always in my head is about, at the moment there's all this conversation about AI is going to do it like creating this efficiency in this area. It's going to provide additional time to helping you, like this cost cutting conversation, time saving conversation. But then the biggest question is, now as a human species, we have all this additional time and efficiency we have. What do we want to do with it? What are we doing? How do we survive? So that's why I feel like the food and wine community, that sounds like a great future to be. If the future is full of that, if that's all our extra times that we are doing, that would be a very beautiful future. All right, so we have the last session of this podcast is our kind of another transitions. We're generally doing two things. Number one, Peru, if you have a time machine to travel back to your younger self, you can give them a piece of advice. What would be that advice to give them?
I think I would tell myself again, like, it's okay to be an individual contributor. It's something I've struggled with in my career journey, is I've always kind of gone for promotions and titles up until quite recently. And I think you kind of get this effect of, oh, I could do better things as a, manager. I can change the system versus, and also obviously like the prestige of having certain titles on your CV. I think it's okay to want that, but then I think it's equally okay to be an individual contributor and really just be excellent at what you do as an individual contributor. So I think that would be even like 5 years ago, I was aiming for, product practice lead roles and head of delivery roles and all of those things. And looking back now, it's like, nobody was asking me to go for these roles. It was kind of the self-imposed measure of success potentially that I had to
enough?
Climb the career ladder, for instance. Yeah. But I think there was, you did that, there was burnout. I was really kind of going, well, what am I doing? And so I then reverted back to an individual contributor role. And I think that just has made like the world of difference. So that would be my sort of question and advice for me. Peru in the past would be just, it's okay. Like, it's okay to go either way, but ultimately land on like what makes you, thrive.
That's a really good advice, to be honest. And also that kind of remind me of what Kiet said before, is everything come repeat and rings in a way. Because I was listening to another podcast called Skip Podcast. I can't remember the name of the host, but basically he's ex-VP of the Meta. So he used to be basically managing all the product management functions in Meta for a very long time. And then last year he also have a pivot moment around what am I doing in my career. So he essentially taking a coaching route outside from the organization, starting a podcast, basically providing people in the career advice. So this is actually in the recent podcast, this is exactly his biggest career advice to people, is considering around individual contributor route as well. Because what he believed the future is basically, I think there was one of the people writing him a message, basically asked him around, at the moment, as a middle manager, for some reason, I don't get any opportunity to grow up in my organization anymore. It seems like the only kind of career for me is either stay in my role or go horizontally or go back to the individual contributor role in the Silicon Valley. And his advice was like, well, if you get a phone call from a company like OpenAI or any of those rocket ship and giving you an individual contributor role,
go for it.
Literally jump now. This is like best offer in the current situation you can get right now, because it's the opportunity for you to be able to really like get the hands-on opportunity of everything and to learn. And then probably it's going to make you so much happier in where you are in the career. So yeah, I will try to find the link and share across afterwards as well.
Yeah. So another tradition of Product Pals is for our guests to ask a question of the next guest along the line. So we call it the pay it forward section. You've actually answered most of the question our last guest had, which was around how AI has shaped your daily interactions with other people. But Paru, if you were to ask a question for our next guests, what would you like to know?
I'm going to ask the guest, who I don't know who it is, but if I asked their team or teams to describe their operating style as a product manager or as a product person, what would their teams say about them? How would their teams describe them? I think this applies to any level, like if you're in a leadership role or even if you're just an individual contributor. So I think it's my sort of introspective nature coming through. I always ask that question of, even when you go to an interview, you're like, well, if I was reporting to you, you know, what would your report say about you? Is a framing I've used in the past. So
that's a cool question.
I'm going to eagerly await the answer.
I like it.
Whoever is your next guest.
Well, but this is not going to be part of Product Pulse transition, but just because I'm really curious about Paru's answer. So how will Paru answer this question? How would you describe?
What would my team say about me? I hope they say that I come in when needed. I help to a degree without micromanaging and without, you know, taking away like their agency. And I sort of am there if they need me, but I don't have to be in the details of everything. There's this whole aspect of, I've seen some coaches who are really sort of in the weeds of, you know, I'm going to set up a calendar invite for this team and I'm going to, you know, do this thing and all of those things. I'm just like, no. I think that's where my response is. Hopefully they see me as somebody who does the thing when they need it to be done, but also helps them just carry on delivering without too many like unnecessary meetings and wasting time. I hope they say I can talk to her at almost any stage.
Yeah, I love it. Maybe there'll be a mechanism that can be validate that. Maybe send you the post check question to your team and find that one out. That would be
I'm about
fun.
to do a 360 feedback in terms of work, so I'll report back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paru.
Thanks so much for your time, Paru, for today. It was really, really good conversation because I know you for years, but I feel like I find out so many new things about you through this podcast. So I feel really grateful about this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I love like the range of people you've had and the questions you've asked and all of those things I think are very, very valuable.
Thank you.